All right. We are live after a little Mexico internet outage, which happens here. So are you still? Oh, you're still in the green room here. Hold on, let me assign you.
There I am. Okay.
There you are. Are you? Let's see. Where are you? Let me go back to my main room. There you are. And I think we're
There
I
we
think
go.
we're live. I think we're live again. I don't know. We'll see if this works. Either way. Okay, so I was sharing my screen right in the middle. How rude of that internet. Let's see. Let me share my screen again. And this is actually, and I'm doing a hotspot on my phone, so we'll see if this works. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, it looks like we're live.
All right.
I think we're good.
I
I
think
think
we're
we're
good.
good.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Share my screen. Share my screen. Okay, we're talking about Apple here. Okay. Oh, can't see that. Okay. Do you see? You don't see my screen. Is that? Can you see my screen? No.
I can see your screen. It's a little bit
Oh,
fuzzy.
a
Oh,
little bit fuzzy.
it's a
Okay.
little fuzzy, but I can see it.
Okay. All right. Well, we were talking about Apple. Let's see, how far did we get? I was about to read some of this. So it says Apple was proven to be one of the tech superpowers. Hold on, let's move some things around. Most determined to curtail efforts by technologists to rethink the economics of the web. They've continued to block the most basic functions of blockchain-based platforms while applying their weighty 30% App Store tax on some base-level peer-to-peer transactions, ensuring that iPhone users get the worst experience in Web3. And that's an interesting statement because that's what could happen here. So basically, what happened, because I'm not sure, well, yeah, it does go into this. So what happened is Coinbase announced this past Friday that it was disabling NFT transactions on its iOS app in compliance with a block Apple had placed on their last app release. Why? Because Apple demanded 30% of gas fees on every NFT transaction to be paid to them. So that's really interesting because Apple charges 30% on any transaction that happens within an app on the iOS platform. And there have been game developers have been complaining about this for a long time, but it's just sort of the way it is. And Apple's got that monopoly in a way. It's not a complete monopoly, of course, because there's a lot of Google phones out there, Android phones, but Apple is still sort of the king. But this is so weird because everybody's been playing by that rule. So, but this is their chart. They want to charge 30% on the gas fees that somebody would use to buy an NFT. That's ridiculous. I mean, I
Hmm.
don't even see how they can justify it. I get it that if there's a transaction fee, but it's not really even a transaction fee. It's not like somebody's buying something uh, like downloading a game or something like that. I don't know. This just seems a little outrageous to me, and I'm just really surprised that Apple, who also wants to get into blockchain, they want to get into NFTs and all this kind of stuff, is just playing hardball on this. My guess is that something will change. I just doesn't make sense to charge on top of gas fees. Anyway, so Coinbase, it's pulled out, but that's so and I don't know if Coinbase's app was really the biggest. I don't know how much traffic they actually had as far as the percentage of NFTs, but they probably had a significant amount. And if they really pushed it hard, they probably could really get a lot of people to buy their NFTs on their Coinbase app. Now, and that I'm not a big fan of using phone apps to purchase and to deal into crypto, but I'm in the minority. A lot of people do. It's very convenient, fairly safe. But the biggest thing, I don't really care what you use to access crypto. It's just, as the educator in me, I want people to understand what's going on. That's just my biggest thing. And I feel like the apps, in a lot of cases, shield kind of what's going on behind the scenes, that when you're using your computer, you kind of see the good, bad, and the ugly of what's going on in crypto. And I just think it's good to be aware of that because the user interfaces right now are clunky and they're not that user friendly. And so you might say, well, then wouldn't it be better to have the phones and access that? Not necessarily. I don't believe that easier is better in this case, because when you're talking about your money and your savings and maybe your retirement, which is what I help people deal with, you need to know what's going on. And this is, I'm just going to go into this little bit of a little side thing here. And this is why when I realized throughout my life that I had not been paying attention to my retirement funds and my 401k. When I was in corporate America, I just sort of let them take care of it. I didn't know what was really happening. And then, you reach my age and you're like, oh, retirement is not looking too far down the road. And you realize, man, I let this go. I did not take ownership of this. So this started this whole crusade for me. And it started with crypto because I really got interested in crypto. And I'm like, I can use crypto in a fairly safe and fairly predictable way with DeFi and with getting yield instead of putting my money into stocks and bonds and, savings accounts and money markets that earn very low interest rates. I can put my money in crypto, earn really good interest rates over the long run. Now the trade-off, again, I just have to be honest. The trade-off is more risky because this is a new protocol, this is a new industry, and you have to watch it. And you have to know what you're doing. You have to get your feet dirty, your hands dirty, and you have to dive in there and be comfortable with computers. And you don't have to be a programmer by any means, but you have to be comfortable with different interfaces and logging into this and having a bunch of different wallet addresses and different addresses, and you've got multiple networks that you have to do. And it's not hard. You just have to be organized. You just have to be organized with a spreadsheet or writing it down on paper, right? So that you know what you're doing. You just can't afford not to have a clear path of where you're putting your money in, and you need to watch it because things change very fast. So, wow, I don't know how we got on this, but this will happen to me, guys. So just, because I'm just foremost, I just really want to help people understand crypto. And these are things that I'm running into, and so my students are running into. And, crypto is great. It's wonderful. But you can't treat it casually. You have to, treat it seriously. And it's still super fun. Just be organized with it. So anyways, wow. I don't know. Sometimes I'm amazed myself even how I can get off on these tangents. Like we're talking about Apple and NFTs, and next thing you know, I'm talking about rules and spreadsheets. So,
Well, it's important points, and it's important to share the learnings as you go, so people don't learn the hard way. I agree with you. The organization is so important, and also I've shifted. It was almost required for the course that we were in with London Rail to not use your phone, which I always used, and thankfully I had good insight on coins. But I was in, like I've said, 33 coins. Ridiculous. I wasn't managing anything, and it was all because of my smartphone. It was too easy. So yeah, I shifted to using my computer, and that was a game changer. So yeah, good point.
Good. Well, thank you. Yes, that's really good testimonial. Cool. All right, so moving on here, it says Apple's misguided rules aren't attacking Coinbase so much as they're undermining blockchain ecosystems like Ethereum itself. Decentralized systems are being taxed by front ends to the front ends and leaving users fewer ways to access services they want to explore. So this is really a catch-22, or it's really both sides of the hand, because again, it's not that I got a problem with necessarily the phones, as long as you know what you're doing and the app isn't sort of hiding what's going on behind the scenes, so that you know. So once you learn how to access crypto on your computer, if you know what's going on, and I mean, by that I mean, if you know the gas fees, if you know, transaction fees, if you know what addresses and what wallet you're using and all that kind of stuff, then you can use your phone, once you understand it. But if you only use your phone, that's going to be a problem, I think, because when things crash or when things go wrong, it's just harder on your phone to really see what's going on. Crypto was really, the programmers and the people that have set up the user interfaces right now use computers, they use browsers. That's just how they set it up. So you can see much more, what's going on. You can look at the transactions in the blockchain, through these um, uh, Etherscan and these blockchain scanning devices. You can see what's happening in the blockchain, if something's going on, or a lot of times some of these transactions take 15, 20 minutes to actually process through the blockchain, and you're waiting for this, and you're like, what's going on? You can actually click and look at the blockchain at your transaction and see where it's being held up, or whatever. Yeah, I don't believe you can really do that on your phone, at least very easily. So but it does still bothers me that Apple is doing this, so it's like, I'm reading this article, I still am a proponent of not even using your phone, for transactions, but I don't like the fact that Apple is cutting people out of using it. So kind of a catch-22 for me. But moving on, it says Apple owns the web of profits enabled by the native apps, but in a way, they also own the open mobile web itself by designing the limitations that prevent users from getting the most from mobile web browsers on iOS, with their 30% fees fail to reach. So, what's going to happen here is right now, Coinbase, if you have an iPhone and you wanted to use Coinbase to trade your NFTs, you can't. And that's just, I don't think that's right or fair. I'm all for people getting their money and for, nobody getting a free ride here, but this just seems a little out there to me. Let's see what else. This article is really cool. I didn't think it would have this much data or information, but I'm going to just keep reading through some of this stuff. It says, through its 30% commission, Apple has dictated the rules of how the internet has been monetized and which developers succeed. Again, it's quite interesting. I guess I didn't really think about it's this hard about how much pull and money they're making. And if you're a developer and you, for some reason, don't want to use Apple, you're very limited in your success, probably because there's so many users that have iPhones. Let's keep going here. It says the systems aren't great for developers, but they really suck for users who are forced to pay upfront for their hardware and then pay it for over and over again as they are taxed on the apps and services and the experience and services inside those apps and services. And this article says it's not cool. I mean, it's not. That's exactly it. You pay for the iPhone, you pay for your plan, your service plan, you pay for the app, and then you got to pay for all the for all the transaction fees also. Yeah, I mean, come on, Apple. Are you greedy much? Yeah. All right, so that's enough of that. What's my next one here? Like this, so long, the U.S. is driving crypto out of business. So this is a similar article, actually. Let's see. My window went away. I'm not sure what I'm showing. Okay, good. So this is, let's see if I can get to, yeah, there we go. So this is interesting. So Nexo, I don't know if have you heard of Nexo?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So Nexo is interesting because I'm not sure about them and what they are, because to me they're a centralized entity like Celsius and maybe FTX. They're not well, I think they are an exchange, but their big claim to fame, what they really got noticed for, and what a lot of people use them for, is just to stake their crypto or park it there and earn yield. So it's interesting because when I first was coming into crypto and really learning about DeFi, my first thought was I ran across Nexo really early in my crypto exploration. Before I even understood anything about Celsius and Three Arrows Capital and all these centralized entities that were playing in with crypto that were really centralized, I didn't get that until they all started crashing and going bankrupt. And then, I'm thinking that, wow, Nexo sounds like a really good thing. It's more centralized, so it sounds a little more safe. And actually, in the U.S., Nexo they had to have more regulation, just like FTX had to have more regulation in the U.S. And really, it pushed FTX in the Bahamas. And so what this article is talking about is now Nexo is pretty much leaving the U.S. because it doesn't want to deal with regulation. But let's read. It says crypto lender Nexo has announced its plans to quit doing business in the United States. It has begun to wind down its operations. There has long been suspicion that there isn't a path forward for cryptocurrency enabled businesses in the US, and Nexo's announcement appears to support that suspicion. So what they're saying is that it's now unfortunately clear to us that despite rhetoric to the contrary, the US refuses to provide a path forward for enabling blockchain businesses. This is what Nexo said. We cannot give our customers confidence that regulators are focused on their best interests. Wow, that's a pretty interesting statement. So here we
Wow.
are, after this FTX, debacle, and for me in the U.S. and really around the country, the cry now is like, yeah, we need regulation on these centralized entities. At least that's my perspective for sure. It's like, yeah, these guys shouldn't be allowed to do that. The FTXs and the Genesis and these centralized entities. And I always have to just always say it that way because this isn't what DeFi is. This isn't Satoshi's vision of what we wanted in cryptocurrency. But this was bound to happen. When I look back at this situation now, a new platform, a new blockchain, a new technology, and especially when we're talking about money and finances, it was inevitable that this pocket, this space that was unregulated, was going to attract players that really just wanted to make a ton of money, and they didn't have necessarily users out for their best interest. And I still believe that they came to crypto, the Celsius, the Three Arrows Capitals, the FTXs. They came into the crypto space because they could do shady things because there was no regulation or very little regulation out there, and they didn't have to disclose it, and we didn't know what was going on, and everyone's getting burned now. So I just hope that we wake up, and regulation is going to be part of that. But instead, I'm disappointed in Nexo, even though I put them on the list that I wouldn't invest in them anyways because they are centralized. They operate very much like these other CeFi companies. But on the other hand, they seem to be saying and doing all the right things. And for a long time, until FTX crashed, I was still planning to use Nexo because it was simple. And again, it was simple. Although I should have learned my lesson from Terra because that's what Terra did. Terra made it really simple to earn 20% interest. And it did hide all the intricacies of how they were getting that 20% interest, and it didn't make sense, and that's because it was a house of cards is what it was.
Wow.
And so now here we have Nexo, and now they're just going to go to wherever they're going to go. I think they're actually based out of Europe somewhere, I think. But so now this is interesting because we know regulation is coming, but are we pushing and driving more entities to go to non-US locations? And are we going to have a bunch more FTXs pop up? And so I don't know, I'm really conflicted about this, but let me continue to read on here a little bit. It says multiple states charged Nexo in September with failure to register its interest product accounts as securities. So again, states here in the US were suing because Nexo was available here and they were earning interest. And what they're saying is that these should be regulated as securities in the United States. And what was happening with all of the industry really in crypto, they were just saying, no, they shouldn't be regulated. You need to come in, you need to look at crypto specifically and then give us guidance how we can make our customers safe, but not be regulated as stocks, because that means that if anybody wants to issue a token or any sort of financial product, smart contract even, no, let me back that up. I'm not even going to mix smart contracts in there. I'm going to stay with what these products were centralized entities that could do anything, in their books or whatever. They could get loans, however, they could make decisions, and that all that information wasn't on the blockchain. And there were lots of corporate people involved, just like a bank, right? Completely different than what DeFi is. So they were operating that way. And the question is, do we really know how their yield was created? And I'm not sure we do. Now, they didn't have crazy 20, 30, 40% interest rates. And they said that it was all backed up by assets. So they seem to be saying the right things, but again, FTX said the right things too. So, but this just gets back to the regulation. It's like now if you're just going to say that all coins are securities except for Bitcoin, and Brianna, that's interesting because that's what I'm hearing now is that that's the latest thing is that nothing's been passed yet, but that basically everything but Bitcoin is going to be a security, and that will really shake up crypto. Now it shouldn't mess up DeFi, because that doesn't really apply to DeFi. Now it will to some circumstances because a lot of the DeFi protocols are offering their own tokens and coins. And sometimes some of the protocols offer, like if you're going to be a liquidity partner or try to get interest from a DeFi protocol, you might have one of their tokens. Say I have Pancake Swap. So I buy Cake, which is their token, and BUSD, which is a stable coin. And I stake those in a protocol and I earn 20% interest. And if they regulate Cake, then I don't know what's going to happen to that token. It probably blows that whole thing up. But we still have BUSD, which is a stable coin, so that wouldn't be regulated. That would still be a stable coin, although that may get regulated in a different way. But so I'm not saying DeFi is not going to be touched by this, but in reality, I think that will be later on. Even if they decide that the Cake token now needs to be registered as a stock. And again, it doesn't mean that Pancake Swap can't go do that and file the correct paperwork and then make the Cake token like a security. And so even though that some or all of these coins are now going to be regulated securities, it doesn't mean they have to go away. It just means they have to do a lot more paperwork. They have to be a lot more regulated, if you will. It's just like a stock. If stocks can exist, why can't coins exist that are just like stocks, which is kind of what they're looking to do. So let's move on. Okay, I think, here's some more. So it says Bitcoin difficulty dropped over 7% last night, which must be great news for my. Oh, this is a new article. This is interesting. This is a completely different topic. Only Bitmain's very best miner remains profitable. So that's really a funny headline in a way. It's like miner here is a type of hardware that they create and build. So Brianna, do you understand that? Because I didn't quite understand this, and just for you and the audience, mining is really interesting because it's really come down to who can make the best, fastest hardware to run calculations and create chips that are made, computer chips that are made just to run the kind of calculations that Bitcoin wants it to run, which is a far cry from the early days when anybody with any computer could load the Bitcoin software and become a miner, and it just worked on any old computer. But as time moved forward and it got more competitive to actually run the calculations in the Bitcoin algorithm, right, to bid and become eligible for the reward, those calculations got harder and harder and harder. So if there were 10 miners in there, all these 10 miners would have to compete against each other to see who could solve the puzzles fast enough, because the first one that solved the puzzle, the calculation, then got the reward for securing the blockchain and validating those transactions. So if you just think about what happened is that if that increased, every month, every year, now it's to the point where they're needing so much computing power. And by the way, that takes power like electricity, that now it's just crazy town, I guess, the amount of processing power it takes to be competitive. And so this chart that's on there right now really shows that this particular mining hardware application, or hardware that was made, you can just see that it's dropping down its profits, because it has to pay for all the electricity, it has to pay for all their overhead and all the cooling and all the fans to cool that. And now what they have is they have these massive computers that are immersed in water, cold water that circulates throughout the boards. That's kind of the newest way. And so and that's a newer technology. And so anybody that doesn't have this new water cooled or whatever they call it type of hardware systems, they can't compete because these other guys are going to win all of the challenges, I guess, so they're going to be mining all the Bitcoin. So what this article goes on to say is, so what this is, so it says the Bitcoin difficulty dropped 7% last night. And I'm like, what does that mean? Well, it means Bitcoin difficulty literally means a measure of how hard it is to earn a Bitcoin. So like I said, the calculation is so hard and everyone's competing. So there's just this measure of difficulty that just continues to go up. And so as the difficulty goes up, you've got to have faster and faster hardware to process it, or you won't be getting the rewards. And so apparently yesterday, or whenever this article was, a couple of days ago, the difficulty dropped. So it's like, what does that have to do? So that meant more miners the miners that were involved could mine more Bitcoin and be profitable. So it says that it had been rising over the last year. Bitcoin's price plunged has meant that only the most efficient mining machines that miner Bitmain makes, so again the hardware, has been profitable to operate. So as the value of Bitcoin's going down, right, each time they get rewarded, they don't earn as much because the value has gone down so much, but they still have to pay their electricity bill. So what they do is they cash their Bitcoin in that they earn, and we're talking, millions of dollars, in these transactions that are going, but they still have to pay millions of dollars in electricity bills. So they've got
electricity, like the cost of electricity is going up in many places as well. That's another factor.
Good point. And so it's just becoming unprofitable to be a Bitcoin miner. And because when the value of Bitcoin is back high, then they cash in their Bitcoin. They got plenty of dollars from that. They can pay their electricity bill in dollars or whatever, right? And they can still have a little bit of profit. So it's really interesting that I didn't really understand this until I started really looking into the details of what it's like to be a miner. And again, these are typically large corporations with thousands of these computers, in these huge warehouses, doing this. So it goes on to say, and so the difficulty dropped. So the question is, why did the difficulty drop? Well, what happened was that, let me keep reading, miners' main expense is electricity. So the continual question is whether or not they're earning enough Bitcoin to have some left over after selling enough to pay for their power bills. The simplest explanation for the difficulty drop is probably that the mining operators appeared to have finally shutting off the old machines. So again, they've got all these machines, right? And they pay for this hardware, and yet it's not competing as well as the new hardware. So they're not earning as much Bitcoin because the newer hardware is outbidding them because it's faster, but it still does earn some Bitcoin. It's not like it isn't earning anything. It's just not earning as much. So they're like, oh, I don't want to shut these off because I'm still getting Bitcoin. And if I could hold on to this Bitcoin, let's say in a year, it would be worth a ton, right? Hopefully, like that's what you and I believe, that it'll be back up to 60, maybe 100,000. So it's hard for them to shut those off because like any Bitcoin is valuable, yet they have to pay the bills, and they just had to. So they eventually started shutting them off. So now there's less people mining. And so the difficulty sort of dropped. And so only now the most efficient machines are going to be mining Bitcoin. And so I don't know. I don't even know where all this kind of goes. I just find it so fascinating to kind of understand the inside workings of how actually Bitcoin, the network, actually runs. And it's something that not a lot of you don't really know about unless you are a miner, or look into it in really detail. Like, really, how does this work? To me, when I first learned about it, it's like, oh, it's just this cloud. There's computers everywhere, and they validate transactions. Like, oh yeah, and then you realize it's much more complicated than that, really.
Yeah, I remember when I first learned about it too. That was what I was reading about, and I was like, I'm never going to understand. I'm never going to understand what this is. Like, yeah, it's pretty interesting. I even read about a country who uses their volcanoes, like, to power.
Oh my gosh, that's cool.
And I'm like, what world are we living in?
I know, but think about it though. Yeah, I mean, if you've got volcanoes producing steam, probably or something like steam powered, just like yeah, just like a lot of our power plants use steam. I don't know. Well, well, I was going to say that's how nuclear works, but not that I'm no nuclear physicist, so I don't even want to go into that. But basically, it's steam powered. Anyway, so this is an article. I won't go into it again, but this was the article about the ledger, about the stacks. So again, excited about that. All right, let's see. So anyway, since we're just going on here, I think let me pull up one last article. Let's see. This one's interesting. This one gets into. Let me see if I even want to talk about this. So I'm going to do this next week because this one is also complicated and it does go into some of this, like what you talked about, and you already really covered it about the Luna, how it's all connected, and Celsius, and this whole thing, FTX and Luna and Celsius, and uh, it's all connected. And I think, we're all going to have our ideas and speculations for a long time to come. But oh geez, now
Yeah.
your Windows all screwed up. Anyways, so well, today was a little clunky, but hey, we managed to talk about crypto, which who cares how it works? We got to talk about crypto, so we had a good time.
Absolutely. And it feels like the entire, like everything, it's not just crypto, it's traditional markets, just everything, like every area of our lives are just being like shaken up to the max
Yeah.
right now. And they're all but they are all interconnected. Even like all of these stories within crypto, like this is all so interconnected. It's so interesting. I'm glad that you brought up that article about Apple. Apple, and I just want to point this out really quick, is kind of making me mad lately. Like I have, and I like Apple too. I have, I use Apple products. But they've been in the news and they're getting a lot of heat. And it's interesting. It kind of seems like a battle of they want to claim their spot, maintain their power, and be in everything. They want to be in it all. They did state that they were going to take Twitter out of their app store.
Oh, right.
Which was big. I did a video on that. I didn't ever upload it, but so it was just really interesting, and then there was something big in China. They were like, they weren't allowing airdrops between citizens. There's just all these different things happening here with Apple. So it's almost like they have someone else behind the scenes there who is wanting to take some control. And it's a little bit political or deeper. I don't know. But that's, I guess Apple's shaken up too, and we'll see where that lands.
Yeah.
But
well,
all good.
I mean, they're all shaking in their boots, right? Facebook, Google, Apple, all these tech giants that created their giant monopoly type organizations on Web 2. And we're moving to Web 3 now, which is blockchain. And they aren't considered the forerunners. Well, let me put it this way. A lot of people don't want them to be the forerunners. A lot of people would like to see new players, like fresh new, Web 3 blockchain people, because we're all afraid, I am, that they're just going to implement their same game in Web 3 and try to monopolize our data again. And this is why Web 3 is so exciting. Not only do we now have ownership of assets that we never had the ability to do, digital assets, right? We can hopefully, our data will become a digital asset that we can own. So completely turning Web 2 companies like Apple and Facebook upside down. And super exciting in a lot of ways. And that's why, and it's still so early. And that's why it's so exciting to get into this now in any way that you can. But just think, if you can become an early adopter of some Web3 company in some way, it could be very, very exciting. You could be like, if you were an early employee of Facebook or Google or Apple, right? And we all know that their pocketbooks aren't hurting because they, early investors. And on top of that, even if you'll never own part of a company or be part like an employee of a company or any of that, we all still get to own our little piece of Web3, right? Just by investing in Bitcoin or investing in little bits of whatever tokens. So that's exciting too. And so, but before we leave this, I just want to put out there that again, Brianna and I try to always spin crypto in as most positive that we can, even though there's a lot of scary type of stuff, uncertainty, with all of it because it's so brand new, right? And we do talk about these scary things a little bit, but we always try to paint it on a positive light because we both love crypto. We think we see the value certainly in the future and even now. But I also did feel kind of like you alluded to this, that there is a lot of pain and suffering going on right now in the world. And it's not so rosy in a lot of areas. And there's a lot of fear out there, I think, about what's coming, especially with like in Europe, with, people not maybe being able to heat their house this year. And then I just heard again that maybe even next year might even be worse. I don't know why they say that, but it's just that made me think like, wow, we're the economy's still, in a funk, and even though it's debatable on some numbers and if the Fed's going to continue to raise interest rates or not, and jobs are not terrible, and I also heard that people spent a lot of money on Black Friday, so it's just a very strange time because a lot of the indicators seem to indicate that the economy shouldn't be that good, and yet people are spending money. But it also means that maybe people are borrowing more and just pulling their savings out because that's just what you do, right? Until you have nothing left, you don't want your Christmas to be, barren. And so it's kind of could, get scary here in a year or two. And I guess I would just say for anybody that hears this and is facing some of this reality stuff and think like, well, why are you so like upbeat about crypto or whatever? Well, because it's the future. It's a new area. It might be a savior for all of us in 10 years, if things continue to get really, really bad, in the economy and the traditional finance and the dollar. This may be the place. So I would just say anybody that's on the fence now and is worried about the economy or whatever, to just get into crypto a little bit. Just dip your toe in there. Just start exploring it a little bit and just don't be completely left out because this is the future. And I'm not saying that it's smooth sailing, certainly, to invest in crypto and to be in it right now, but at least it's an alternative. And so I guess I'll just leave it at that. Do you have any final thoughts on that before we close?
Very well said. Yeah, like you said, there is a lot. I mean, it's every major area of our life and all over the world is being kind of seeing a bear market and is going to rise, I think, from the ashes. But what crypto does provide, I always kind of ask myself, I'm like, where would we be without crypto? Like, what would we have? It's this thing that's bringing the globe together, that's seeing this as a path to financial freedom. And what better of a time than now? And I ask myself that. There's only a couple things right now that I'm like, man, where would we be without that? Lately, I'm like, where would we be without Elon Musk? And I'm not even sure what I think about the guy, but like, seriously, like Twitter, I'm like, man, and I don't know what I think about Elon, but I'm like, what would we have without these little things? And it's I think that we're seeing a lot of, in the media on both sides and how every angle right now is pointing out so much and highlighting so much of, and creating a lot of fear. However, it is all there and things that should be recognized as happening, but it's not going to last forever. And this is the time to build. This is the time to really focus on building ourselves. That's what I'm focusing on. I want to build myself to be strong because this is the psychological game that these bear markets do to you too. we're never going to come out of this. Like, this is going to be the end, this is the end of whatever this may be. And no, this is a psychological game. I was just watching a video. I recommended it was Raoul Paul and it was Impact Theory. Tim,
I just watching that today. That one I was watching today.
Were you?
Yes.
I was watching that last night.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this is good stuff. And it is a psychological game. And if we can be strong and like position ourselves mentally and like financially to where we're like in the right positions, and we can really come out of this in great positions. So that's my focus, and keeping that silver lining. And I think that it's more than a silver lining. We might not see it so much because we're so bombarded right now with all of these different things, and maybe that needs to happen. But I think that there's a lot more hope than we think. And I think crypto is a huge part of it. So yeah, my final statement.
Yeah, nice. We'll end on so that's really funny because some of my thoughts going into my little statement were based on that video. Some of the things that Raoul said, and I love Raoul Powell. And Tom Ballou, I can never pronounce his name, from Impact Theory.
Yeah.
I just kind of got turned on him a couple months ago, and I love his stuff. And he's got some really cool NFT stuff on his website. If you haven't been on there, like, he's all in now in crypto, like big time in NFTs. He thinks NFTs will change the world, just not from like an investor value, but like utility. So fascinating stuff. So yeah. Well, once again, it's just funny, like. Brianna and I, that's why we do the show together, because, even though we don't really communicate back and forth, we really are on the same page, and we're watching the same videos, and we don't even know. And you've turned me on to some, good ones about, I can't remember their names now, but I'm enjoying now the couple of the video series that you've turned me on to. So
yeah, that's hilarious. We found ourselves. I almost started taking notes last night. I was like, this is too good. Yeah. That was just so good. That conversation. But yeah, but of course, yeah, we're out of the thousands of videos you can watch, we were watching the same one.
Well, and that's too funny how, it just shows like we are such nerds about this too, because when I find a video like that too, that's what I do. I take notes. I'm like, okay, this is too good, because like sometimes you just watch them, you just like to, but with the good ones, I'm like, okay, I need to take notes on this, because we're advocates for the whole market, and even though we don't quite have the audience yet that Raoul Powell has yet, we're still learning, but we always put our own spin on it. Like Brianna's spin is wonderful about how she takes the whole. I love how you take crypto and talk about the upward trend in crypto, and then how we need to have our upward trend in our life, right? And that goes by paying attention and investing in our life like we would invest in crypto. Did I get that kind of right?
Yeah. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. Spot on. Yeah. Yep. And so, I'm inspired so much because Scott is an author to a book, and Be the Hero of Your Life. And I take little segments out of his words, and that like pops into my head throughout my days. And I'm writing a book now. And so, yeah, that's part of this whole, like, it's just really cool, like-minded people that are all coming together here from all, Scott and I happen to be really close to each other on the map, which is, that's also interesting, but mostly, our people are just from all over and have these common core kind of interests. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, we're gonna meet in Dubai sometime. We're gonna do this show from Dubai someday. I envision it. I see it.
Okay, I'm all about it. And El Salvador, which I looked it up, they were actually, El Salvador are the ones that mined Bitcoin from their volcanoes. So nice. You will come from a volcano in El Salvador.
Yep, all right, be there. All right, guys, enough rambling, but thanks for watching. We just have the best time doing the show, and I hope that you can glean a little bit from our ramblings, and I'll just end with, get out there and talk about crypto. Do your own podcast, get on Facebook and talk up crypto, because it's the future. All right. See you, everybody. We will see you next time.
All right, we'll be back next week. Thanks, guys. See you.